Welcome back to the Film and TV channel. I hope you're all staying safe and well. And our penultimate edition, certainly for this series anyway, Series 16, Week 11 of The Apprentice. Yes, the interviews, of course. So, yeah, the last four, we're down to the last four. So we're going to have a look back. Please, there are spoilers in this, so please make sure you've watched it, because you'll get to know everything by the end of this. If you don't already, I'm sure you do. Just my little thoughts and anything that took the eye in the interviews, which was quite funny. It's the sort of thing that was always worth watching a couple of times, in fairness. Quite enjoyable. Please, if you're on our YouTube channel, push that subscribe button, push the bell notification. Give us a thumbs up, guys. That'd be very much appreciated for this little channel. I do these, obviously, this show review. I do movie reviews, TV drama reviews, lots of information blogs, lots of stuff out there. So your support is very much appreciated. Right, here we go. Apprentice, the penultimate one. Last week we lost the two remaining boys, of course, Akeem and Aaron. Neither were going to rescue themselves, really, last week, were they, unless they did something spectacular, or they were on the winning team. Unfortunately, both teams lost, so that was the worst for both, because there's one guy on each of the teams, wasn't there? So the problem was, obviously, previous weeks come into play, and actually, of the 6 people left, the 4 girls and the 2 lads, were the poorest, so they both went, which left obviously the first all-girl interview final, if you like, I think, since The Apprentice started. So my ranking before this show, I had Harpreet at the top, and a good way at the top. I had Catherine quite steady in second. I think she's doing all right. Stephanie, who had been an early leader, obviously a bit like a temperament and a personality, was struggling a bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, for Stephanie. And Brittany, a lovely girl, but just seemed to lack. You know, we're interested to see how she does on the business side there, sort of promoting what a business would be, because we've not really seen that side of her. She's bubbly, she's fun, she's personable, but say of the 4 girls, I think she was possibly the weakest. So that's the 4 remaining to win $250,000. Of course, we got the interviewers this week. So we had Mike Suter, who's a publishing pioneer, they say. Linda Plant, who's a global design agency founder. So there's a couple of these things quite interesting. They obviously involve design, don't they, in some way, and fashion. Claudine Collins, a £1 billion media agency. She founded a £1 billion media agency. And Claude Littler, of course, returns, Sugar's associate and mate, and thankfully with both legs. Yes, he had a nasty accident last year, nearly had his leg amputated, but fortunately he walked on. We didn't see him limp on or walk on, but we assume he walked on in some way. So they were the interviewers. So let's go through the girls and how they cope with each of these interviewers. Harpreet, of course, she's a dessert parlour owner, or let's say co-owner, which she wasn't really emphasising, unfortunately, in a plan. Obviously, she's 50-50 with her sister, so not entirely true that she's an owner. She's a co-owner. She made a lovely pancake-layered pile on a plate while they were in the house before the programme started. So I'm in. Sorry, that's the wrong show, isn't it? But based on what I saw, I'm definitely in on that one. Harpreet stays at the top of my list, that's for sure. So, yeah, little comments from the interviewers. Claudine said she wouldn't want to work with her because of her strictness. Yeah, so I think she was actually putting, and she regretted it a little bit. She did say regretted it. Sort of expects a lot from people, but you should expect a lot from people, but you should also allow people to have a bit of fun. I think that's how I do things. You can have a bit of fun as long as the work's done and you're all working to the same thing. So I think she accepted that she was perhaps too hard in what she said in a business plan about people and people working for her. Claude looked at a CV, and as I said, he pointed out the fact that it's a 50-50 with her sister. She's not the actual owner, she's a 50-50. And Lord Sugar wanted to invest in her, but now he's obviously having to invest in her and her sister potentially, but a little bit more on that later on. So he just simply said to her, off you go, which is just Claude, isn't it? I mean, Claude is a decent guy when he was on the You're Fired show. He seems a nice bloke, but obviously in business he doesn't mess about. He doesn't take any prisoners, does he? Mike's sort of comments was the competitors, really. I think she's got a couple of big competitors who've both got about 100 shots. One took 8 years and one took 10 years to get to that number. And she still only has the one in 5 years. So that's a little bit of a worry. And obviously, she was sort of saying that she might have underestimated it. She might, instead of one, she might go for 2 per year. But it certainly doesn't sound enough, did it? Linda, asked her what a USP was, but she said obviously the USP is herself, but she didn't really get away with that one. So interesting. Yeah, she didn't interview very well. She came over quite poorly in the interview, which is a shame. But she did. As I say, she got a lot of stick and she got a lot of in-depth analysis. But she didn't particularly interview that great for me. I thought she might have done a little bit better, but obviously I think she was on the back foot with this one. On to Catherine, whose idea is pajamas for the whole family and dogs. Yes, about cats. Nothing for the cat or the hamster. Well, not good enough, Catherine. Yeah, so that was her plan. Linda looked over it and she gasped out on the designs, because obviously she could get a similar design or the identical design to what Catherine had in her business plan from a retail outlet. So obviously that was interesting. And she had to admit she wasn't the designer, and Linda was a little bit unhappy about the China link as well. She hadn't done any real business with them. She had a few samples, but obviously it is a stiff market, it's a complicated market. So Linda casted doubt on that, and obviously later on it did get casted, and the doubts about China sort of raised their heads again, which we'll probably touch upon. Claudine asked how it could be ethical and sustainable when it's flying in from China. All of the carbon footprint, absolutely fair enough. Claude was a bit worried about the stock and the profit and loss, and he said obviously by year 2, I think she was making a 250. Well, it's about 229. I think he said about $250,000 loss, but it's just under $250,000. But by year 3, she would make a profit, but unfortunately, as Claude pointed out, Lord Sugar's money had gone by then, so it didn't make any difference what they made in year 3. Mike had a great one. I mean, the first thing I did when I set my own little website or had my ideas was buy a website title, and obviously he brought out all these things because he'd bought up all her website titles. She hadn't done it. I mean, it doesn't cost a fortune. It's not a lot of money, and certainly if you plan to go into business, it's worth shelling out the few quid it costs, because it's not a lot of money to do this. But obviously Mike had bought them all, so she was a bit stuck. But he did say if she went forward in the process, he would gift them back to her. So that was cruel and kind in a way. Again, interviewed very poor, not great. I say I didn't mind the idea actually, but she struggled. She struggled in the interviews. Stephanie, second-hand designer children's wear. Yes, this is very, very niche. Obviously, you can go onto eBay and get designer stuff, whether it's fake or not. But that's the whole problem, isn't it? Mike pointed out that he got out a designer shirt and tested some of it. So rather than saying she wouldn't know, because it's not what she does, she pretended to try and look at it and say it was fake, whether it's fake or real. And personally, I would have said, "Oh, it's real," that, and obviously it was, but she said it was fake. But just don't fake it. Basically, just don't fake it. There's not Stephanie. I mean, part of what Stephanie's fault was. I mean, just you're put on the spot. Just say, I don't do it. I would have an authenticity team to do it, or a group of people to do it. I'm not capable of doing it. Just admit, and that's the trouble with Stephanie. She would admit there's something she wasn't quite capable of doing. And so obviously he did point out the authenticity firm she uses only actually do handbags and shoes. So that's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Why didn't she check that? I'm not too sure. So she didn't come out of that very well. Linda pointed out that she'd only literally sold 50 garments so far. She'd had a Christmas thing and she'd only sold 50. So Linda just pointed out it was a pipe dream with no substance, which is fair enough. I can't argue with that. Claudine, this is, talks about her dad and how proud he would be of her, etc. And this brought Steph to tears, which I say, very, very hard lady, Steph. It was unusual to see, but I think she later admitted that was a side perhaps she should have brought out a little bit more. And she's spot on with that, because all the way through we've said she's not very personable. She's very hard. So, she definitely should have done. Claude pointed out she had no experience in fashion or the pre-loved market, and it was $160,000 just for the startup cost. So there's almost all of Lord Sugar's money gone. She did actually say she they were overestimated. So there you go. But Claude wasn't impressed. He said she looked like someone who wanted to run before they could walk, or vice versa. So yeah, again, a slightly better interview. She did a slightly better interview than the others. She didn't. There's less pessimism on what she was trying to do, I think, from the interviewers as well. So she didn't do too bad. She did perhaps better than the other two. And finally, Brittany, fitness idea, a high-protein alcoholic drink, of course. Claude himself was mystified, no profit and loss, cash flow, etc., which is a business plan. It should be a business plan. So that was a bit. I mean, it's not. It doesn't take a lot to go and find out what you need in the business plan. I'm very, very strange from Brittany. It probably shows a naivety as well. And he simply said, it's not a business plan, the interview is terminated. So that was the end of Claude and Brittany. Mike had a batch of a drink made up from the formula, and it wasn't nice. He made her drink it as well. And she admitted to her colleagues outside that, yes, it didn't taste great. So that wasn't good. But why hadn't she done samples? I have no idea why she didn't have samples ready anyway, because they may have been slightly nicer tasting. But she did admit that it's just not as bad a taste as it could be. So it is saleable, which is debatable in all fairness. And he also brought up the business plan. And we did have tears, and she was obviously, I did say Steph cried, but obviously Brittany was the first to cry about criticism, which is what it was. No surprise there. I honestly thought if someone was going to cry, I expected someone to cry, in all fairness, and I thought it would be Brittany. Linda went on to say no experience in the alcohol business she hasn't, or having her own business at all. She's going straight into it, and a vodka version of this, which is what her basic element is, has been available in the US since 2008, but Brittany said she couldn't find that. Well, it was quite simple because it just didn't work. So it didn't hit the mark. So that's why she wouldn't have found it, because it's not very popular. That says a lot, doesn't it, really? Again, poor interview. And I think Steph came out the best from the interviewers, but that doesn't say much because they were all pretty awful. I don't particularly like any. Obviously, I like the the dessert idea, but my waist might disagree with that one. So back to the boardroom, and obviously Lord Sugar chats with the interviews about the contestants. Brittany, more or less, I think we knew straight away she was going to be one of the first to go, because they were sort of implying she just sticks to the hotel stuff where she'd done very, very well. But at least Mike did stick up for the idea a little bit, said there was potential there, but yeah, I think we more or less knew Brittany was going to go. So it left the other three, really, didn't it? And I say we didn't know at that stage, but we still went on to Catherine, and obviously China was the problem, wasn't it? And they all agreed it was possibly not the way to go. She would need some mentoring, and that's what partly she's there for, of course. And she, would perhaps start in a smaller scale, so it wouldn't include the costs that she was on about. So they were hinting there that there was potential for that one. Stephanie, is obviously comparing to eBay, but she wants to be more niche. And the panel weren't overly convincing for or against this one. So for me at the moment, Catherine possibly. And we're not too sure about Stephanie. Then we're left with Harpreet, of course. And the problem with Harpreet was her sister, because Harpreet, there's still a demand for this sector. Apparently it's a growing sector, even though these two firms we talked about before have got 100 outlets each. It is a massive sector, so there was positivity about that. So even before they got the girls back in, I was sort of inkling. I did actually put here before, as I do these things as I'm watching the programme, we're up for a Stephanie Harpreet final. Probably not, because obviously the little wild card, of course, was Catherine, who, as I said, did imply needed mentoring. So I personally thought before they started chatting, that's what it may be, Stephanie and Harpreet. But once they started chatting, you have to think Catherine had a great chance, because of the way they worded the interview, of course, when we were chatting about her in the boardroom. And the candidates returned, and Catherine was basically, yes, China. It was simply saying that China is out. It may need to be scaled up a little bit slower than Catherine thinks, and not do it from China. So again, positives for me in that little when the girls came back in. And Steph, a big problem authenticating, and the sales figures also a problem. And Lord Sugar did mention flying pigs, which wasn't good. So that was a bit of a downer for Steph. That was a bit of a worry. Harpreet, is the sister prepared to step down? She said she would, but obviously families are families. It's weird, isn't it? And I Lord Sugar asked, would you just give up everything? He found it hard to believe. So that is another problem for Harpreet. But Harpreet did say it wasn't a problem, but we know what families and businesses are like. Brittany, yes, again, I think it sort of hit the nail on the head. No experience, a problem. And basically, she got the boot the first of all, so we were left with the other three girls. They just decided that her idea and what she was done is a no-go. You know, stick to the business, you know. That's what Lord Sugar implied. If you're going to a business, do something you know about. And she doesn't know anything about that alcohol. She might know about fitness, but she doesn't know anything about this market that she's trying to get into. Well, yeah. Then he went back, and then it was the pre-love. There's no love for the pre-love, was there, for Stephanie? So Stephanie, when the three girls went back in after a little discussion, Stephanie was next on her way out. And my top two, basically, before this show started, and for most of this season, I think they've been up there, made it to the final. On the You're Fired, of course, you had Brittany. Appeared on that. The panel said yes, 2-1, that she should have been fired. The studio said fired, so that was pretty unanimous. I think that's fair enough. But Stephanie did okay. The panel said 2-1 for hired, and the audience said hired as well. So Stephanie did all right. So overall, for me, the best two did make it to the final. I think these have been the best two over the last few weeks, certainly the last few weeks, say the last 4 or 5 weeks, definitely. And they would have been up there most of the series in my little, when I started doing a top 10. And, you know, you can look back, but I'm fairly sure they were without looking back. I'd say they've both been up there most of the time. So next time, obviously, they're going to get a chance to launch it, aren't they? Going to get a chance to launch the idea. Do I have a preference? Is it dessert parlours or family fashion? Very interesting, very, very total extremes, aren't they, of business? I don't know what Lord Sugar's involved in at the moment, whether that have any base, whether he's got any food based in. Does he likes to get into things perhaps he's not overly in, but he thinks there's a potential. So has he got some food stuff? I'm not too sure. I'm sure there has been some over the years, but I can't remember offhand. And of course, fashion as well. A lot of it will depend on Lord Sugar, and of course, a lot of it will depend on how they present next week and how the industry look at it as well. So it'll be very, very interesting. So, yep. So I see a lot of guys back from other episodes, not all of them, of course. I think they pick about 4 or 5, don't they, to come back. So that'll be interesting. And the two finalists will pitch their ideas. Let me know what you think, guys, and let me think if they made the right decision. What do you think? Who do you think is going to win it? I mean, I'm out on this one. I say the two strongest girls as a personality and the way they are. Harpreet, as I said, apart from being a bit of a stickler and a bit hard, that might work against her just a little bit. But I find it very hard to sort of decide on these two now for the final. Certainly on businesses they're proposing, dessert parlours, which is say, even though it's a growing market, there are already established firms in there, aren't there? And the family fashion thing, interesting. Again, very niche, but again, hopefully bring it back to the UK, scale it down a little bit rather than the China thing, etc. Then she might have a chance with that. Anyway, let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching today. Hope you enjoyed that, and let's look forward to the final next week, and we'll have a look at that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Where we're going to do the rest of the day, have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, let's look after each other. Till we meet here again on the Film and TV channel. I know that's one thing, don't I? Please stay safe, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.